Hey, Jasmine, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much, Lacey. I'm glad for this opportunity. Thank you so much for extending it to me.
Oh no, I'm happy to have this discussion. I think it's so important to talk to kids about money. I think it's something that intimidates a lot of parents. I think everybody's got their own backpack full of stuff that they bring to the conversation. And so I
Right.
think parents have that a lot when it comes to money on their own, not and then bringing another person's life into it, I think complicates it. I
Absolutely.
wanted to start with asking, how did you get into personal finance and, being a children's writer specifically about money? How did this all start for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent my college years in North Carolina and I was an ROTC scholarship recipient. But I didn't know how to manage my money very well. And so I ended up living in my car for about 2 months while I was a senior in college. And I remember that time. One, it was because I didn't ask my parents for help, and I should have. And then two, I just really didn't know how to manage my money. So when I commissioned into the Air Force, graduated from college, I made a promise to myself to learn as much as I could. Like I couldn't be living paycheck to paycheck. I was going to get my first salary as a second lieutenant in the Air Force. And so I wanted to make sure that I learned as much as I could. So the summer before I went to my first duty assignment, I went to the library and I took out any book that had personal finance. So investing, saving, paying off debt, buying a property. And so that was kind of like my first start. It was really from a story of just not knowing how to manage my money and then doing as much as I could to learn. From there, my at my first duty assignment, I bought my first property at 23. I was house hacking with people, and that was like not a thing 10 years ago. Like there was no YouTube and no like real on like how to house hack. It was a blog. I remember it was like renting out the rooms, and I remember I messaged the guy who ran the blog, and I was like, "Hey, I really want to do this renting out the rooms. I just bought my first property." He gave me some templates and I went on Craigslist, found my roommates on Craigslist, and did some background checks and credit checks, and I had people renting out the bedrooms. And from there, I was able to pay off $40,000 of student loan debt by the age of 24. And so that's kind of my intro into personal finance.
You're right. House hacking wasn't a thing. When I was active duty, I had a friend that was house hacking, and I thought that was so cool that he had this home and rented it out to all of his buddies, and they were help paying the mortgage. So he was
Yeah,
way ahead of his times, just like you. And it's a great way, especially when you're younger and you're single, to
absolutely.
get your finances on lock. When you
Yeah.
did all this research, reading different personal finance books, do you feel like that helped shape the way that you do money, your own way? Because I feel like that's really how it has to be with money, because there's so many
Mm,
people like me, other podcasters, bloggers, people that are
yeah.
authors that talking about money and have their own perspective, but you
Yeah.
have your own set of values, what's important to you. Do you feel like reading all the books, you were able to pull the pieces that were most important to you?
I think it was I think it was the books, and I also think it was my upbringing as well. My parents are from the Caribbean, my grandparents are from the Caribbean, so I'm first generation American. And so I can't say that like they did help me with personal finances. My dad had a Visa Bucks teen card that I had when I was 12 or 13, that he would load my allowance on, and then I would utilize that. And I realized, okay, Jasmine, you can't swipe it if there's no money on it, right? And so I really do think that my parents and my grandparents instilled in me like the values of you don't spend more than you earn. You don't like borrow if you don't have the money to pay for it. So I do think those core principles were in me. I just think it was very hard for me to manage the money. And that's where the books came in, that you don't need to have, all these shoes. Like my thing was shoes. I love shoes. Even in college, there was a pretty well-known website that I would buy like $120 pair of shoes, like for some reason I didn't have $120. I think I was making like $500 a month. So but I do think the books really helped with the principles that I needed. I think I had that foundation already. I do think the principles helped with investing 10 to 20% of your income, saving, making sure that you can eliminate debt as much as possible. Those were the things that I think I was missing.
I completely the same way. My parents instilled those principles, but I would say I did not listen to anything they said. I guess I felt like I had to be an experiment. Like, I'll test out your theories. I'll see
Right.
if this is really true. Then then
Absolutely.
then I'll adjust. Turns out they were right. That I
They're
should
always
spend
right.
less. Yes. It's
Right?
annoying, but they were right.
They were
I guess
right. Yes.
life experience helps a lot.
Absolutely.
So your parents taught you about money. At what age do you think that people should start talking to their kids about money? Because I think that's the other thing is I think, well, you have to
Yeah.
be like 16 when you start driving, or you have
Yeah.
to when you have a job. But what is really a good time to start beginning it?
Yeah, I think early on. So studies have shown that research has shown that kids can learn about money as early as the age of 5, and sometimes even as early as the age of 3. It just depends on the child and their development, and that they also have their habits of saving and spending by the time they're 13. So there's really like kind of a small gap between 5 and 13 that you can really just start talking about it. Just share, it doesn't have to be this rigid structured curriculum. You have to go through the saving and the investing and the taxes and those different things. It could be just kind of what you mentioned, Lacey, about the values. What is something that we value? I love to do a good exercise with younger kids. It's kind of like, what are some things around the house that you think you value? And they say water, running water is something that is important. That's how they take a shower. Clean clothes, electricity, so they can either play games or watch Coco Melon or whatever. And that you start to they start to understand that, okay, these are things that our parents value, our caregivers value, but also those are things that are important to me. And then we associate a cost to those things. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
One of my first money memories is when I was 5 years old, and it was like I wanted this.
Mm,
I've told this on the show before, but I wanted this pair of I wanted this pair of lace gloves for Easter to wear with my dress, and they were like
yeah.
in the J.C. Penney catalog. And we were stationed in Germany, and my parents were like, "Well, we're not going to pay for them, but you can use some of your money. We'll pay for part of it." And anyway, but I was 5, so that makes a really good point. I never really thought about that. That's a great
Mm,
age, and that was a lesson.
yeah.
Like, hey, we're not paying for this whole thing. You have to invest a little bit of the money you got for your birthday if you want
Right.
in Christmas in order to be able to buy these. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about kids growing up and you're setting these foundations, what are some of the negative and positive impacts of teaching or not teaching your
Mm,
kids about money? Because if you do it, like, there could be some great things that come from it, but if you don't do it,
right.
also some not good things.
Absolutely. I think I mean, well, there's not even, I think, there's so many statistics where there are parents that just will never have a conversation with money with their children. I think it's about 37%. It was through a Money Smart Kids survey. And so if they don't get those conversations at home, it means that they're being influenced by social media, they're being influenced by the news, and so you could potentially be missing out on an opportunity to share lessons learned. Maybe you weren't great at money. And so that's an opportunity to share, hey, I wasn't great at credit. I ran up a credit card. Here's what not to do. So you don't, so you can avoid those either consequences in the future. I think one of the pros is that kids are able to make mistakes at home. So maybe they swiped a credit card that they have in their name and they ran it up. Well, they have those experiences at home. I know for me, speeding tickets were an issue. I used to drive really fast, but I learned quickly that my mother was like, hey, if you're going to run, if you want to speed, that's great, but you're going to pay these bills. I learned very quickly, okay, there is a consequence to not following the rules, right? And my mom and my dad really held me accountable to that. And so I think just making sure that those lessons are being taught at home, making sure that kids are able to make mistakes, that they're able to ask questions, and that you as a parent or caregiver are able to just express kind of maybe your money insecurities as well. So that way they can feel a little bit more confident as they get older. I've seen it where young adults end up not having any kind of information, and they're getting a lot of their information from TikTok. They're getting it, from different social media platforms. And while there is really great experts on those platforms, there's also, scams and different misinformation, right? And so just to be able to avoid those opportunities, I guess, for misinformation, I think it's really important that parents and caregivers have conversations at home.
I love that. I think conversations really start things and makes the lesson learned, from personal experience, not as harsh for a child. I
Absolutely.
always start conversations with my boys of, let me tell you the time I was most humiliated. I want them to
Yeah.
understand, like, one, you're not alone. If that ever happens to you, like, this happens to everybody. I learned that at basic training. Like, they're going to yell at everybody one time real good, real good.
Right.
So you're not special. You're just going to get it. So, but
Absolutely.
that's having that conversation and letting them know, like, hey, I've messed up with money too. I like to keep it real with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean it should be. I know for me, I learned those hard lessons, and I really could have just went back to my parents and just one asked for financial help, and they would have given it to me. But two, yes, I could have just been honest. And I think for me, I wasn't really honest about the situation. I felt like, oh, I got myself in this situation. I can get myself out of it. Now that was a lesson I had to learn. But I do think that if you're already providing a space to grow this human and to give them everything they need, you're signing them up for extracurricular activities. It is so important just to add money to the conversation. And it could be, hey, we have to budget $600 for, let's say, competitive volleyball this year. And by budgeting the $600, maybe we're not going to do X, Y, and Z. It's not to say that we don't want to do it. It's just that we're prioritizing this extracurricular activity, and just having that conversation, the open dialogue surrounding the budget, I think is important as well.
You mentioned budgeting. What are
Mhm.
some of the financial foundations that parents should teach their kids? I guess you probably don't want to start by throwing the kitchen sink at them, but what are some basics that they should be teaching?
Absolutely. So values definitely I think is number one. And sometimes those don't have a certain cost to it, right? You value your family, you value friendship. But definitely understanding what the values are, understanding there is a budget. So there's income, right? And then there are expenses. And so whether you call it a budget or a spend plan, but there is some type of thing that we use as a family to ensure that we're able to do the things that we want to do. So I definitely think having some type of budgeting or spending plan, understanding investing, I think that is really, really critical. There are tons of kids that have their first job at 16, 17, 18, and just understanding that you don't have to spend all of the money that you earn, a portion of that money is going to go towards taxes. So taxes is another lesson, but also a portion of that money should be going towards an investment. And then also saving. So I share with teenagers and young people that, try to limit yourself. So 80%, maybe limiting it to 70% if you can. So that 30% is going towards your giving, having some type of charity or tithing with a church or religious organization, 10% going back to yourself, or 20% going back to yourself, and then utilizing the rest for your wants and your needs, which is your housing, your car transportation, your food, groceries, and then the things that you want to do, which could be entertainment, different things like that.
Earlier, you were talking about starting conversations, and that's a strategy to start talking to your kids and prepare or teaching them about money.
Yeah.
What are some other strategies beyond conversations? Are there, lesson plans? Like, should you be very regimented with it, or should it just be
Yeah.
when something comes up, like wanting to have something for Christmas
Mm.
or for a school dance or something like that?
Yeah, I think it should be a part of the daily conversation. Now, it doesn't have to happen every single day, but I think having, at least I don't know about, I'm sure Lacey, for you, you talk about money all the time because you're a personal finance expert. I do as well. But I do think that just understanding what's going on in the news, I think that's a topic of conversation. You could talk about, for me, I really enjoy the Morning Brew. It's a like
Oh,
a morning, news article or news articles that you can read with a cup of coffee. And so maybe highlighting some special events that are happening in the world, and then how that's connected to money. You can read books from the library. I know for me, that was a big thing with my mom and I. We would go to the library every week and I would take out 5 to 10 books and then I would just read them and we would have dialogue surrounding what I read, or maybe I'd have to do some type of presentation on what I read. Um, you can also, I love the grocery store challenge. It's really simple. It's not like anything special, but really going to the grocery store and identifying just the marketing and how there's certain things on the shelf that are going to be attractive, and why do you think that was attractive to you? Like maybe it had pictures of a certain person on it. Maybe there was, maybe it was just accessible. And then you could talk about behavioral finance and how like there are just certain things that will draw your attention and would influence you into a decision. Now that's probably a little bit more advanced, but we all are influenced in some way. We all see advertisements on TV or YouTube or whatever. And so I think just having dialogue around what are you experiencing that when you say you want something, what is going on? And I think peeling back the layers of like why, I think is also a great segue into kind of personal finance. And maybe you want this thing, but maybe it's not something that you truly need at this moment.
yeah, I have a strategy of letting them fail too with like cheap toys. In the beginning, I'm like, don't do that. Like it's gonna
Yeah.
break. Like don't spend your money on
Mm,
that. Nobody wanted to listen to me. And then I remembered
yeah.
how I never listened to my dad. And now I'm like, go ahead, buy it, do it, get
Yeah.
it, spend your money on it. And then we'll see what happens. And then I have a
Right.
conversation like, now this wasn't quality and you
Right.
spent money on it and it broke literally on the way home.
Yeah.
So it was not a good investment of your money. But cheap
Right.
toys are a really great one. I always use the vending machine too. I always thought that was
Mm,
great. Like, here's just a random handful of coins, like see
yeah.
what you can get. Like you're going to have to give up maybe the soda if you
Right.
want more snacks, or and then it's like you got to count it out, you have to figure
Right.
it out, you might not have enough to get all the things that you want. So that
Absolutely.
was always a good one at the pool also, to get them away, like go do something. Like here's a baggie full of coins.
You got this.
Yes, yes,
I love
it's
it.
a sink or swim, it's sink or swim.
Right. I agree. I think you mentioned, Lacey, just exploration, just allowing kids to explore when it comes to money. I know for my family, it was you definitely had to get a job and then you can do all the exploration you want. But sometimes it doesn't have to be a job. Maybe it could be an allowance. Maybe it could be, they worked really hard and then they're rewarded with some type of monetary gift. I think just being open to the things that they desire, but also providing some structure around the things they desire. Like don't just let them do whatever they want, but like just having some structure behind just exploration. Maybe it's we're gonna go to the bank. I know for my family, going to the bank was like this magical experience for me. Like I don't know what that tube is called, but just the the
The
like the
tube, the
chute,
tube.
the tube. But that was for me, that was so exciting to see. One, I remember my grandmother writing out checks. She still has her seamstress business, but I remember her writing out the checks, and like I would have to write them out with her and then balance the checkbook. And then I remember like reaching my little hands through the car window to for the tube and then magically talking to somebody on the other side. For me, I remember that experience, and I remember my grandmother telling me, if this doesn't balance correctly, something's off with your credits or debits, or you wrote a check that you weren't supposed to. And so I understood, okay, don't write bad checks. Don't spend more money than you have that you own, or I guess, or possess. And then that there's somebody a part of the process when it comes to banking. Like you're not doing this all by yourself. And so for me, always just understanding teamwork. I remembered that teamwork mentality when I went to go buy my first property. I needed a lender, I needed a realtor, I had an inspector. There was all these different pieces of this kind of puzzle when it came to personal finance. And so I try to share that, like, you're not alone in this situation. You're not by yourself. And that's also a lesson that I think should be shared.
Those sound like great memories, and how wonderful that your parents and talked to you and taught you and talked to you about money, but also seeing your grandmother having a business, being in entrepreneurship, and the money management side of that. It's just not doing
Absolutely.
the work of sewing. It's
Yeah.
actually, you have to manage the money and get paid for the work that you're doing. So I think that's super cool. I'm trying to be mindful to talking to my boys now that I have a business,
Yeah.
about it's not just this thing that is in thin air. There's
Yeah.
some work that's involved. So it's wonderful that you had that at an early age.
Absolutely.
When parents are talking to their kids about money, how can they avoid basically projecting their money
Mm,
drama onto their kid? Give
mm,
them the lesson, but not
mm.
traumatize them with how
Yeah.
they learn that lesson.
Yeah. I think really asking how they feel about what they're talking about, because there is a possibility of, as you mentioned, projecting the money trauma and like projecting their scarcity as well, when it comes to money. And so really asking, like, how are you feeling, what's going on, what made you want to make this decision, share kind of, here's what I would do in this situation, but also celebrating that they made a decision. They made a decision, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, celebrating that. And then maybe even bringing somebody else along. Maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's another adult that can also share their money experiences. I think that's really helpful too. I recall when I was growing up, I went to a Catholic school, and most of the families were pretty affluent at this school. And I remember being able to see horseback riding lessons, and seeing my friend's family who had like massive amounts of property, and like they owned everything. And so it was awesome to see, just, oh, there's a different way of life. There's a different way of thinking. I think had I been in my kind of bubble just with my family, it would have been hard to just see that. And so I think being able to experience other opportunities, other ways of thinking, I think is important too. Like, don't discount like that's just other people's experience. Like, you don't have to be the only person in your kids financial journey. There could be other people who would influence them, good or bad, but hopefully for the good. Yeah.
You have two really great books to help kids with money. What about parents? Because those are tools and resources that they can use to teach their child about money. But what about the parent
Yeah.
that maybe isn't as confident about money,
Mm,
and they're scared to take that step to start teaching their kid about money because they don't want to teach
yeah.
them the wrong lessons?
Mm,
What should parents do to feel more confident in what they're teaching their child?
absolutely. So always recommend making sure that you're investing in your own personal development. I think it's always like, sometimes it's missed. Like, we want to invest in the future and the kids and everything, but sometimes the parents stuff is not together, right? Like, they don't have a retirement savings, or their credit card debt is kind of out of control. And so I highly recommend, I love books. I am a reader, love them. If books are not your thing, I'll recommend some other things, but I definitely think reading Psychology of Money, I think that's a really great tool for parents. There's also this investing book that I recommend. It's for kids, but I think if you can get a concept basic enough for a child to understand, that an adult can understand as well. And so it's called the Ultimate Guide to Investing for Kids. And so I think that's a really great book, just to understand like how the stock market was created, what is the stock market, and then what are the different components of the stock market. So if you do want to teach your child about investing, that's a really great tool to use. I definitely think looking at different documentaries on Netflix. There are documentaries, I believe, like Ramit has one, to I'll teach
Oh, yeah.
you about money, and then there's the Budgetnista has another one. It's like four different personal finance experts. But I think just immersing yourself into personal finance and understanding what is your money story, like what is your, I guess, your take on personal finance for yourself, um, And then also, if there are things that you want to do, maybe highlighting someone, maybe bringing in an expert to help you to get to the next level. So that way you can teach your child more things that maybe you didn't understand.
Yes, and I think the way that you did it was amazing. You went to a library and you read these books and then like you said took your own take on all that information that you consumed to craft
Right.
how you're moving forward with your personal finance, your investing in your money story.
Yeah.
I think that's great that you know you didn't just take one piece or body of knowledge about money, that you went to multiple sources, got
Absolutely.
different perspectives on it, then you can create your own perspective on it. I think that's so important when it comes to money, because that can be so easy to just hear one person at one point in time
Yeah.
versus over a long period of time, different perspectives.
Absolutely. And I always share anytime I'm teaching or speaking that it's a personal finance is a lifelong journey. It's continuous learning. So what worked for me in the season of buying my first property might not work for me now in my 30s. It might not work for me if I have like an ailing, oh gosh, that's not a word, sorry, and a sick parent, you know, or a sick person in my family that maybe now I have to take care of. Like there are certain seasons, and I think just being open and mindful that one workshop or one webinar or one YouTube video is not going to change everything, but that you will continuously gain little nuggets along the way as you go along your personal finance journey. But also bringing in someone, I think, is important. Having someone who maybe is 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, or maybe it's someone that you would desire to be like. I know for me, it's a friend of mine that I met through the military. Her and her husband are incredible, like when it comes to personal finances, and she's someone that I will bounce ideas off of, and vice versa. And so bringing some along, that's why I mentioned, you know, the mentor for your kids. I know I had mentors as a kid. It wasn't like a program or anything. It was just adults that took an interest in my life and my development and just wanted to see me win. And they ended up being personal finance mentors as well.
I love that idea. I follow Sarah Blakely, the founder of
Mm-hmm.
Spanx,
Thanks. Yeah.
and I know that they are on a whole different sphere of money. So I
Yeah.
go ahead and what I'm about to say, just lay that out. So I get like this is a rich folk thing, but
Yeah.
um, they hire people to come in to coach their kids. So each child, I think it's every
Mm.
summer, says something that they want to learn, and they bring in an expert to teach the whole family to do that. And I just remember one of them
Mm.
was, I think one of the kids wanted to learn breakdancing. And so they brought in like some breakdancing expert, and the whole family learned how to break dance.
Oh,
And it was great because
wow.
they are getting like an expert in the area, and that's something new that every child is learning. And I think they all have to
Yeah.
like set goals and things like that. But I love
Nice.
that idea. I mean, I'm not going to be able to hire a breakdancing expert for my boys, but I could
Right.
probably get a YouTube video going
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
that's the thing they want to learn about.
Absolutely. Right. Or just like within the community, there are tons of like personal development programs that somebody knows someone that can help out. And for me, the community, my mom always talks about the village that raised us. And it was, for me, and my sister, just a group of people who really loved my mom and loved our family, and that just really imparted wisdom into us. Those ranged from lawyers and attorneys to dentists to hairstylists to military members. And so for me, I think what I like to share is that you're not by yourself. I think when I was going through my journey of personal finance initially, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person in this situation who couldn't afford, an apartment. But I wasn't alone. And I try to instill that into the young people that I have the opportunity to speak with. You're not alone. There are other people who have been through this situation and have overcome the situation, and you just have to find out who those people are. You can find them from maybe it's like a local pickleball group. It could be your local religious organization that you're a part of. It could be just volunteering, different areas of interest that you might have. But there are people that have overcome certain situations and have been able to attain certain situations and certain milestones that maybe you're interested in. And so definitely connecting with those people and then being honest about your situation and sharing and hopefully they're a trusted individual that can help you to where you would like to go.
What is a big mistake that you see parents make when it comes to teaching their kids about money? I don't know if we want to use the word mistake, but
Mm,
maybe something that's not good to do.
mm. Um, well, I always applaud any parent who is willing to have the conversation because you hear so many adults saying, I didn't learn about money when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to applaud any parent who is taking some time and getting smart themselves about money, but also sharing that information with their child. What I see often is like the kind of being afraid of debt. I see that quite a bit. Like, oh, you shouldn't open a credit card. You shouldn't open a credit card. I mean, I don't have a ton of credit. I'm not like a points person or anything like that. But I do think that sometimes you do have to like get a mortgage, right? And that's going to be some form of debt. And while it's a lot, it's also an opportunity to build wealth and to potentially open up other doors for you. And so I think there is sometimes like where I have young people who are like, oh yeah, my parents had no credit cards, not at all. And I don't know. I think that if the child is responsible, you know, they've shown that there's a level of responsibility. There should be an opportunity to build their credit. There are other ways as well, but you know, I do see the kind of scared of debt quite a bit.
Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
a good point. My dad was always big about like self-control. Like this is
Hmm.
self-control. Yes, you are going to be exposed to the ability to get credit, but you can't go
Yeah.
buck wild. Like
Right.
let's again, you have to control
Right.
yourself. Like you're going to have
Right.
to be an adult about this. So I think that that
Right.
self-discipline with money, is an important part when it comes to managing any type of debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing, I'm sorry, Lacey, that you I just thought of. Another thing that I also see is like kind of like a excessive consumerism. That's one thing that I see quite a bit where parents maybe who didn't have much or they want to open every single door for their child. And I think that's a great thing, but it almost is like to a place where the child doesn't understand like the value of a dollar. Like they don't understand like their parents had to work really, really hard to obtain this. And so I do see kind of like the younger generation, like they want to go on a trip to Cabo. They want to go, you know, to the Taylor Swift concert and pay $1,500 for, you know, VIP. Like they want to go on a Euro vacation. You know what I mean? And so I do think that being realistic with you know you're 18, you're 19, you're 20, you're not, you know, at a maybe you're not at a place where you can afford that, and so you don't need to put that on a credit card. Maybe you just have to save up for it, or maybe that's not, you don't go to, you know, 5 different concerts or 5 different festivals in one year. You know what I mean? And so I definitely see that quite a bit, that there is this there's this want for all these different things
Yeah.
in a shorter period of time versus you do have to work for it and you do have to yeah, save up for it. And you might not need like FOMO is okay. Like you're going to miss out and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. So that's definitely
Yeah.
what I see quite a bit.
Yeah, I always tell my boys, I'm like, if anybody's going to go on an awesome trip and get new outfits, it's going to be me, not you. So, or, there's this thing where keeping up with people like, we have to buy this friend this really expensive gift for his birthday. And I'm
Right.
like, we are not spending more on your friend for his birthday than I spend on my
Mm,
mom or my grandma. Like, that's
right.
like, keep it in
Right.
perspective. Like,
Absolutely.
it's not gonna,
Absolutely.
and if you would like to spend that amount of money, then that it comes out of your pocket, not my
Right.
pocket. Like,
Right. No,
so
it's true because I mean I've seen it. I've seen I mean young people who they get their first job and they're really concerned because they're like, I just thought I thought I could go out to eat every day. I thought I could, you know, hang out every day. And I realized like I can't do that. I'm like, yeah, there's a limitation to it. You have to, as you mentioned, Lacey, self-control. You have to understand that maybe you don't want all these things. Maybe you just see it and it's like, oh, it would be nice to do, but it's not necessarily what the goals are. It's not necessarily helping you reach your goals.
Yes. Well, I want to ask you a couple of quick random questions I ask
Yeah.
everybody. First off, what is one resource or tool that you use that makes your life easier?
Mm. Oh, there's so many.
I know. It's a hard one.
Um, this is gonna be super basic, but it's definitely Google Calendar.
That is a good one. That is a good
It
one.
does. Yeah. It keeps me organized. I put everything on there. I put like tasks that I need to accomplish on it. And I put like the dates that I need to accomplish it by. I put just time to travel between different things if I have like an in-person engagement. For me, it's a great resource. It's an underutilized resource too. So
That is
yeah.
a good point. I've just been teaching my boys because they're at the age, they're teenagers. It's like these things you need to manage on your own now. Like this has to
Yeah.
go on your own calendar. That doesn't, the family doesn't need to be involved in you getting a haircut on
Mm,
time or something like that. Like
yeah.
this is so I think that's an important tool to as a teenager coming of age to help start
Absolutely.
managing their time.
Absolutely. And then also managing expectations too, because time is money. And if you miss an appointment, that's a late fee or a no show
Yep.
fee, or you know what I mean? And so I definitely think managing time is critical.
Yeah. Also, too, the military, your poor planning, why does it constitute an emergency for me? So it's like you missed your haircut. I'm not moving my entire schedule to like accommodate when they could get you in because you didn't
Right.
schedule in
Plan.
the right amount of time. So, or you're going to
Oh,
be
I
going
love
out
that.
looking like you don't want to look because you didn't get your haircut. So,
Right.
unless
Right.
lessons learned, lessons learned.
I love that.
Okay. What is your favorite book right now or your favorite book of all time?
So the book that I read was The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, and it's about just how do you create spaces where it's more meaningful. So whether you gather at a dinner party or whether you gather at an event or a speaking engagement, just how do you ensure that people can leave with being inspired and empowered, but also allowing them to do some type of action, enabling them to create an action from that event.
Ooh. That
Yeah.
sounds like a good one. Well, I'll be sure to link to that in the show notes for everybody. Now it is time for my favorite part of the podcast, which is game time.
Ooh.
So today, in honor of your visit, we're going to be playing fact or fiction teen version, which I thought would be a
Okay.
little twist. So I'm going to give you 5 statements, and you have to tell me if it's a fact or it's fiction.
Okay.
If you get 3 of the 5 correct, you get bragging rights that you won game time on the Military Money Show. So
Nice.
you're
Oh
probably going to
gosh.
want that for your
Pressure.
LinkedIn account.
I
Yes.
love it.
Okay.
Oh
Number 1.
gosh.
And I should say, I found this study and I found this website. It was based on a survey done by Piper Sandler's,
Mm.
but it's on this website called Headphones Addict, and it's about all
Okay.
about teen spending. So in case people are wondering where these are
Ooh.
coming from, I went with that article. So okay,
Nice.
number 1, an average American teen spends $2,331 per year. Fact or fiction? So this is an
Fact.
average American teenager spends per year.
Fact.
That is a fact. That is
Yeah.
correct, according to the survey. Okay, number 2. Teens spend the most money of that 2000 whatever on movies and events. Is that fact or fiction?
Fact.
It's actually fiction. It says they spend the most
Really?
money on clothing and food.
Okay, I could see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That makes
Number
sense.
Number 3, especially the food, just amount of like Chipotle, McDonald's, it's just Taco Bell, it's
Yeah.
out the door. And I say that because I did that myself. So, all right,
Right.
number 3, 54% of teens save money. Fact or fiction? So just
Mm.
54% of teens in general save money.
I can see that. Now I'm like questioning. I've
This
seen
one's
so
kind of
many
hard. I
different.
will say that. This one's kind of
Yeah.
hard.
I can see that I'll say fact.
It's actually fiction, but not probably the way you think it is. And I feel bad now, Jasmine. This one's probably
Yeah.
a tricky
No
one.
worries.
This study said 83% of teens are saving money. So I don't know if that's, $10 versus, $200, but it's
Yeah.
saying it's actually more than 54%. It's
Oh, got it.
83%
Yeah,
of teens are.
I figured I thought it'd be higher. I think they're saving. That I will not deny. I definitely think teens are saving. But
Yes. Okay.
that makes sense. 83%. Okay.
Okay. Number four, a teenager costs $1,438 per month in a middle income family. So this is, in a middle income family per month, $1,438. So I don't know if, like counting in insurance, food,
Yeah.
clothing.
I'd say it'd be more, but I don't know now. I don't know. Uh
This is a tough one, Jasmine. I'm sorry.
it is. I feel like kids are expensive regardless.
That's what I
I'm
have
like
no. I have two teenagers, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to relook at my budget.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know. I'm gonna go with fact. I don't know.
It is a fact. It is a
Okay.
fact. Fourteen
Okay.
thirty-eight per month, so they are expensive. I mean, my
Yeah.
boys can polish off just a whole like large pizza each by themselves. Like they just can pack it away. It's like, yeah, I make lasagna a lot just to like keep them fed.
It's good. It's a nice, good meal. It's a nice,
it,
healthy meal.
and it's low cost.
Right.
So, okay,
I
number
love it.
five, a
Okay.
teen with a part-time job and allowance spends $3,826 a year, which is more than the other teens in the first question. So these are
Wow.
teens with a part-time job and an allowance, both.
Hmm. Man, I don't know.
I don't want to put pressure on you, Jasmine, but this is for the
No,
win.
this is pressure. This feels like pressure, Lacey.
I don't
I'm
know
just
why I'm
trying
laughing
to
so hard.
I'm like I'm trying to think of like because yes, you do spend more typically when you make more, but there are responsible teens who are not spending as much. But I don't know now.
Just
So
think
I'm
about the
thinking
food.
I would think of the food and the insurance if they pay car insurance and different things like that. I don't know.
Outfits for Taylor Swift concerts.
Right? That's real. Okay, I'm gonna go with fact.
Yes, it is a fact.
Okay. I feel like I had some assistance there, Lacey. I had
Well,
some help there.
no, I have seen like the clothing thing is so real, especially I think in this survey it was talking about two girls outspend,
Mm,
on clothing, but still
yeah.
boys are spending the most on clothing too. But then it talked about like boys spending a lot of money on gaming and consoles.
I could see
So
that.
yeah. So you get bragging rights that you won game
Oh,
time on the Military Money Show.
yay! I'm
Make
excited.
make your week.
I love it.
Well, I really appreciate you playing the game and being on the show. Can you tell everybody listening where they can learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Lacey. I do appreciate the opportunity. And you can head over to thewealthplayground.com to learn more about the work that I do and then just a little bit about me. And then on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter, I'm at Jasmine like Paul. And yeah, I would love to connect with you. I'd love to talk with you. I love talking about money, but also love talking about other things as well. So if you want to connect, just connect with me.
Wonderful. I'll be sure to link that all up in the show notes for everybody. Thank you again, Jasmine.
Yes, thank you so much, Lacey.